They ruled an empire where the sun never set, controlling vast swaths of Europe for centuries. Their name was the House of Habsburg, and for all their staggering power, they carried a visible, inherited flaw. A physical deformity that would come to symbolize the genetic decay at the heart of their dynasty, the Habsburg jaw. This isn't just a story about unfortunate facial features, it is a profound historical and biological cautionary tale of how one family's ruthless obsession with the purity of their bloodline led to their ultimate collapse. To understand the tragedy, we must first understand the ambition. The Habsburgs did not conquer their vast empire primarily through armies, but through alliances and, most importantly, marriage. Their strategy was codified in their famous motto, Bella gerant ali, tu felix Austria nube. Let others wage war. You, happy Austria, marry. The Habsburg rise from minor nobles to the preeminent European power was breathtakingly fast, starting in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Their founder, Maximilian I, Archduke of Austria, initiated the grand strategy by marrying Mary of Burgundy, a union that instantly brought the immensely wealthy Low Countries, modern-day Belgium and the Netherlands, into the family's possession. Their son, Philip the Handsome, continued the plan, marrying Joanna of Castile, known later as Joanna the Mad, the heiress to the unified kingdoms of Spain and its massive, resource-rich American colonies. The culmination of this strategy arrived with their child, Charles V. In 1519, upon inheriting the Austrian lands, the Burgundian legacy, and the Spanish kingdoms, Charles V was crowned Holy Roman Emperor. His empire was so vast that the saying, "the sun never sets on the Habsburg Empire," became a literal description. It was an empire forged in the wedding chapel, not on the battlefield. The goal was clear and cold: consolidation. Marrying a cousin, a niece, or a first cousin once removed ensured that Habsburg lands, titles, and wealth would never pass to a rival family. Every marriage was a political treaty, a way to keep their immense political power and territories united under a single family name. This system of endogamy, or continuous, close consanguinity, became a defining characteristic, especially in the Spanish branch of the family, which saw the most concentrated inbreeding. Consider the severe familial relationships that became standard in the Spanish court. Philip II married his niece, Anna of Austria. Philip IV married his niece, Mariana of Austria. In one of the most genetically compromised unions, Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I married his niece, Margarita Teresa of Spain, who was also his first cousin. Over 2 centuries, from 1516 to 1700, an estimated 80% of marriages within the Spanish Habsburg line were between close relatives. The family tree was not a branching structure, it was a tangled, ever-tightening knot. They had achieved political purity at the expense of biological stability. Every person carries recessive genes. These genes may carry harmful or undesirable traits, but they usually remain hidden or dormant if the other parent contributes a healthy dominant gene. In a diverse population, the odds of 2 unrelated people carrying the exact same rare, harmful, recessive gene are low. But the Habsburgs systematically removed that diversity. By marrying close relatives, they were dramatically increasing their coefficient of inbreeding. F. This coefficient is a numerical measure of how closely related the parents are, determining the probability that a child inherits 2 copies of the same gene from one common ancestor. With each successive generation, the likelihood that a child would inherit 2 identical and potentially defective copies of a recessive gene from a common ancestor soared. They were essentially gambling with their own DNA, and the cumulative effects of inbreeding depression, the reduced biological fitness in an inbred population, began to surface. For generations, the most visible sign that the Habsburgs were losing their genetic gamble was their chin. The Habsburg jaw, or the Austrian lip, is the common name for the condition known clinically as mandibular prognathism, a condition where the lower jaw, the mandible, grows significantly larger than the upper jaw, the maxilla, causing an extreme underbite. Scientific studies analyzing the portraits of 15 key Habsburgs across 20 generations confirmed a direct correlation between the degree of facial deformity and the degree of inbreeding. The more inbred the monarch, the more severe the jaw. However, modern research suggests the deformity was often a two-part problem. The lower jaw was excessively large and jutted forward, known as mandibular prognathism. This was often paired with maxillary deficiency, meaning the upper jaw and midface were underdeveloped and sunken, visually exaggerating the protrusion of the lower jaw. The resulting misalignment of the teeth, or Class 3 malocclusion, was far more than an aesthetic quirk. Contemporary accounts described serious functional problems. Difficulty with chewing. The teeth could not meet properly, forcing the person to swallow food whole, leading to chronic digestive issues. Slurred speech. The tongue often seemed disproportionately large for the oral cavity, leading to lisps and difficulty forming words. Inability to fully close the mouth. This led to a pervasive, embarrassing problem of persistent drooling and the prominent, heavy lower lip, the so-called Austrian lip. The famous facial feature was only the most visible symptom of a far deeper, system-wide genetic fragility. The concentration of identical recessive genes also contributed to a host of other debilitating conditions that undermined the dynasty's very survival. Low fertility and infertility. The rate of successful reproduction dropped sharply across the generations. Alarmingly high infant mortality. Between 1527 and 1661, the Spanish Habsburg kings sired 34 legitimate children. Of these, 17 died before the age of 10, a mortality rate significantly higher than the average for Spanish nobility at the time. This suggests that the genetic flaws were often lethal in childhood. Physical and intellectual disabilities. The cumulative effect led to pervasive developmental delays and physical frailty that made the monarchs progressively less capable of ruling their vast empire. The political purity the Habsburgs sought in their bloodline was inexorably turning into genetic rot. The genetic experiment reached its gruesome, inevitable conclusion in the Spanish branch of the family with the birth of King Charles II of Spain in 1661. Charles was the final, tragic product of 2 centuries of relentless consanguinity. His pedigree was a textbook example of destructive inbreeding. His father, Philip IV, was his mother's uncle. Charles II had an inbreeding coefficient of approximately F equals 0.25, meaning he was genetically equivalent to a child of brother-sister incest. The consequences for Charles II were catastrophic. He was born physically and mentally disabled, the most afflicted of his line. Extreme frailty. He suffered from rickets and epilepsy. He could barely walk until he was 8 years old and was perpetually sickly throughout his short life. The ultimate jaw. His jaw was so pronounced that the British envoy Alexander Stanhope wrote, "He has a ravenous stomach and swallows all he eats whole, for his nether jaw stands so much out that his 2 rows of teeth cannot meet." Incompetence. He was a figurehead who lacked the mental stability and political acumen to manage a complex, struggling global empire. He was nicknamed El Hechizado, or the Bewitched, Because the court and the public could not comprehend his extreme physical frailty through natural means, they assumed he must be cursed or possessed by a demon. In reality, he was simply the living embodiment of a genetic debt finally coming due. Charles II was only 4 years old when he inherited the throne of the largest empire on earth. Yet the central tragedy of his life and the final nail in the dynasty's coffin was his inability to reproduce. The entire reason for the Habsburgs' political endogamy to ensure a continuous flow of heirs was undone by the infertility that was a direct result of that same strategy. Charles II married twice, first to Marie Louise of Orleans, and later to Maria Anna of Neuburg. Neither union produced a survivable, viable child. The prayers and rules of the entire dynasty were aimed at the impossible task of securing an heir from a body that had been genetically sabotaged by its own ancestors. When Charles II died, childless, on November 1, 1700, just shy of his 39th birthday, the Spanish Habsburg line ended in a whimper. His death created a massive power vacuum at the heart of Europe, as every major royal house laid a claim to the Spanish throne. The result was the brutal 13-year conflict known as the War of the Spanish Succession, a devastating war that involved all major European powers and reshaped the continent. The Spanish Habsburgs Empire dissolved not due to military defeat by an external enemy, but due to a self-inflicted genetic wound, an obsession with pure blood that proved to be biologically unsustainable. The jaw, the proud, powerful, distinguishing mark of the dynasty, became their tombstone. Their history remains a unique case study where the decline of an empire can be traced not just on a map, but on the face of its kings. If you found this story of genetic tragedy and imperial collapse compelling, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more deep dives into the hidden histories and scientific mysteries of the past.